up, everybody? Welcome to not only a brand new YouTube video, but a brand new NBA series called The Atmosphere. Brought to you by the Lead Sports Media. I'm Prichard. Here, we're going to be deep diving all NBA storylines, player trends, and just about anything going on around the league. Before we get started, go ahead and follow us on Twitter at TheLeadSM. Go ahead and follow all our Twitter branches. We have all 30 teams. Anyone you find interesting, we probably have a branch going for it. You can follow me on Twitter at CameronPNBA. Now that that's out of the way, sit back, relax, let's get straight into it. It's finally that time of the year, man. Playing games are going. We got playoff games starting this weekend. Throw all 82 games out the window, man. It's playoff time. It's real basketball time. Alright, maybe not all 82 games, but seriously, the playoffs are a different beast. And it's time for these teams to really lock in and see what they're made of. We already had a crazy Lakers-Wolves playing game that came down to the absolute wire. Regardless of how bad a game it was playoff basketball. We got Bulls-Raptors tonight. We got Pelicans-Thunder tonight. Can't wait for more playoff excitement to get me going, really get me into the swing of things. But today, the first round matchup we're going to be deep diving, breaking down, is going to be Suns-Clippers. Now, I'm not just doing this because I cover the Suns for the lead, and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I promise you that's not the only reason I'm covering this series. But there should be genuine intrigue in this series, man. It seems like a lot of people are sweeping this one under the radar. It's either high or low. I see people there all in, or they think it's going to be a wash. I don't know. But we've got a 2021 Western Conference Finals rematch. We've got two teams that split the season series in the season. So 2-2 coming into this one. Neither team, in just about any of those games, were completely healthy. So we got two teams who don't really know what they're getting into with each other. And as I mentioned before, man, we already know all the history between these two teams and the players on these two teams, which literally the last time they faced in the playoffs ended with a Pat Bev push of Chris Paul to the floor for absolutely no reason, I'm pretty sure. I don't even know if I ever found out the reason for that. But like I said, history of the teams, history of the players. This is finally the Kevin Durant-Kawhi matchup that we've been waiting for since the KD injury back in that finals matchup versus the Raptors. Just two all-time small forwards finally being able to really match up against each other. This is going to be an all-time matchup for their history books, not even just for a round one series. What else you've got? You've got Chris Paul's old team, the Clippers. I know we already mentioned that he beat them before, so not as big of a storyline, but still a former team. Got the Russ, KD beef. It's not beef anymore. Russ actually just came out and said it's not beef anymore. Let me get you the actual quotes here. No beef, nothing but respect for him, and things he's done in his career. Happy to see him back from injury. You love to see the growth. You love to see the positive environment being curated here. He does also, in the end of that quote, say that Kevin knows that he's going to go out on the court and compete regardless. So I see Russ using this as a spark to get himself going regardless of if there's no beef or not, But I mean, there's a lot of storylines going into this series, man. There's a lot going on. And there's going to be some great basketball being played. So I can't wait to dive into both these teams. Let's get started. Let's look into what we got going on here. All right, first team we're going to break down, question, is going to be the Clippers here. Heavy underdogs coming into this series, plus 385 on FanDuel to win the series. You've also got Suns at minus 7.5 here, so it seems like the odds are definitely in the Suns' favor, which is not necessarily shocking, because this is going to lead me into my very first question for the Clippers. Is Paul George going to play? Now, as of today, the 12th here, I have no real reporting on what I've seen. The most recent thing I've seen is Paul George getting up some shots without a knee sleeve on. So, progress is progress is progress, If nothing else, if the Clippers go down in the beginning of the series, maybe they go down 2-0, 3-1, something down like that, I could see Paul George making some sort of return, probably, if anything. But that should be the first and probably the biggest question for the Clippers going into this series is the status on Paul George. Now, honestly, my next question is going to be on the Clippers' depth. I know their main storyline all year has been how deep they are and how many guys they can play and how many different ways they can beat you. But this last deadline, they made a lot of moves, and the continuity hasn't been there necessarily for them with their stars also. Adding pieces like Russ, Eric Gordon, Bones Highland, 3 guards, all new to the system. Then you have Kawhi, who's been load managing the whole year, who I know he's picked it up at the end of the year, but still only so many games with this whole unit and with this whole rotation. And then the elephant in the room, as I obviously already mentioned, already know Paul George, so who's going to have to step up in his place? But the Clippers got their own rotations to figure out when it comes down to it, if you really look at it, I think. They have some answers, I'm not going to lie. The first name that should be mentioned that has rallied around the absence of Paul George has been Norman Powell. Got 20 points per game here on 50% shooting in the last 10 games leading up to the playoffs. And I did mention how much Kawhi hasn't really played throughout the year, but he is still averaging a smooth 24 points per game on 51% shooting and 42% from 3. So, hey man, playoff form Kawhi is nothing to mess with, I'm going to be honest. But that Norman Powell 20 points per game is the second highest on the team, and the drop-off is kind of concerning after that. The drop falls to Russ, who's averaging his solid 15 points throughout the year. Then it drops again to Marcus Morris, who's averaging 11 points on the year, and so on and so on. So when it comes down to it, it feels like the Suns obviously smoked the Clippers in the superstar level talent category. But I think the depth category is, if anything, a lot closer than what people are making it out to be. Which, talking of the superstar talent, leads me to the next question for LA, which is going to be the question for everyone playing the Suns, is who's going to guard Kevin Durant and Devin Booker? To start, I'm thinking Kawhi on KD. Then what are they going to do? Batum on Booker? They could throw Marcus Morris on Booker for the size, maybe. They do have Covington, who could come off the bench, waste some fouls, maybe use his length to bother Booker as much as he can. But I'm talking about all these guys guarding Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. You got to worry about the pick and roll duo of Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, The defense is wary of me for the Clippers too, also. And honestly, I don't know if that's more of a knock on the Clippers or just a compliment for the Suns, because the Suns' talent in that first five is just ridiculous. Alright, talking about that Suns stardom got me wanting to flip over to the Suns now, so we're going to go right into them. The minus 500 favorites for this series. Ridiculous. I already gave you the minus 7.5 for the game, so we already know the odds are in their favor for game 1 here. But let's dive into the questions that the Suns are going to be asked coming into this series. And clearly, if you've been keeping up with NBA Twitter and the slightest, you know that all the talking points on the Suns, the only thing you can critique on them right now is their depth, is the continuity that they have. The continuity that I am speaking of is 8-0 with Kevin Durant in the lineup. That comes with the guy here, a 121 offensive rating and a 109.6 defensive rating. Crazy numbers in themselves. But you have to look at a big picture. 8 out of the 82 games is not a lot of games together. However, look at Kevin Durant, his entire career. He's one of the most plug-and-play superstars of all time. And if you've been watching the Suns throughout the last few years, you know the offense is built perfectly for an offense like his. All the pin downs, all the off-ball action, all the drags, the double screens. It's crazy. It's fit for him. He loves it. If anything, these 8 games are just him to get his timing and rhythm down with the offense. With his 26, 6-3 on, what do we got? 57, 53, 83 splits. It feels like he found his rhythm. At least somewhat. But when it comes down to it, the 5 through 9 guys are going to have bigger roles than they previously had, for sure. Like, if the Clippers are planning on sagging off Josh Okogie and just letting him chuck the threes, he's going to have to hit his shots or attack the closeouts, get the fouls going, He has his opportunities, but he's going to have to make the most of his opportunity. And Monty hasn't been the most consistent with his rotations either. It's almost a roll of the dice who you think's going to come in every night if you're a Suns fan. You got TJ Warren, you got Damian Lee. He's been a fan of Terrence Ross a lot, though. You're hoping Campaign comes back in. The juggle of the backup centers, Biyombo and Jock Landale. Down the bench, I just mentioned 6 guys. At least 2 of those guys aren't going to see the floor at all, so throw them out the window. But will the guys that do play be able to find their rhythm and keep it? That's going to be the biggest question and the biggest toss-up for the Suns when it comes to their play on the court. Now, another question I have for the Suns is actually the same question I have for the Clippers, just in a sort of different aspect. Who's going to be guarding Kawhi? Kawhi has size on, honestly, a majority of the Suns' lineup. And with how he's been playing down the stretch, I feel like he's definitely going to get his regardless, There's only so much you can do about his robotic mid-range jumper that is unstoppable. But honestly, it sucks to say, with no Paul George, the Suns can really hone in on Kawhi and take their pick of who they want to guard him. Who I think they're going to start with is the main point of attack, who's been the main point of attack throughout the majority of the year after the departure of Mikal Bridges, is Josh Okogie. However, like I said, the size is going to be there for Kawhi, so he might be able to shoot over Josh. He might be able to get himself going regardless, so another option we're going to have is Book himself. As much as the Suns want Devin Booker to be offensively focused throughout the series, this might be a series where he has the opportunity to make a name for himself on the defensive end. He'll match up size-wise, weight-wise with Kawhi a little bit better than Josh, for sure. And we all know he has the toughness to take up a challenge if there's going to be a challenge offered to him. So Book is a very viable option as well for the Suns to guard Kawhi. And in the end, man, when it comes down to it, the help defense is going to be KD. If KD ends up getting the switch on him, you got KD to bother him with lane. DeAndre Ayton's going to be down there in the paint protecting. It's going to come down to the bench defense as well. That's been lackluster down the stretch for the Suns. But in reality, depending on who you keep on the floor, there should be someone to guard Kawhi for the most part all the time. And if one of those guys isn't guarding Kawhi, you're hoping they're neutralizing Norman Powell, guys like Bones Highland, other guys that are going to want to try to be a spark plug, but you're going to have to let them try to get theirs and focus your energy on Kawhi. So if anything, I think the Suns' defensive versatility is one of their biggest strengths that they have. Might be showcased here in Game 1 and Round 1 of the series against this Clippers team. Clearly, some other X factors for Phoenix. We're going to have the Chris Paul storyline going here. And looking back at that 2021 matchup, the closeout game 6, Chris Paul dropped 41 points with 7 threes made. Maybe that's why Pat Bet pushed him. Maybe that's why. But he really took over, averaging 24 points a game and 8.8 assists in the 4 games he played. He only played the 4 because he was injured in the first 2, but he really took over when he came back from the injury. And as much top-end talent as the Suns have, they're going to go as far as DeAndre Ayton's effort is going to take them. So it's going to be in him to lock in mentally for this playoff run and really show his effort on the defensive and offensive end. I'm talking the quicker decision-making, I'm talking the rebounding, the boxing out, the elite touch he's shown in the postseason. That's the thing. He's already shown he's capable of locking in for the playoffs, so you can't count him out till you don't see it, but we'll see what happens, you know? But overall, man, this is going to be a great series. This is going to be one of the more fun series, I think, of the first round. KD versus Russ for the first time ever facing off in the playoffs. As I mentioned, you got the Kawhi KD all-time matchup. You got the drama to see if Paul George is going to come back. You got to see if the depths are going to figure themselves out for each team. You got a lot of stardom in this series. Which, can I just say, the schedules just dropped for all the playoffs, and the Suns-Clippers, every single game only has 1 day rest. I'm pretty sure every other series has at least a few games with 2 days rest in between. Every single game has only 1 game rest. These boys about to be tired by, if anything, the 4th game, at least. And then they also have a game on NBA TV. You got Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Kawhi Leonard, possibly Paul George. NBA TV, bro. That's crazy. That's just crazy. So let's go. I'm going to be honest. The prediction is easy for this one. I'm going with the Suns. And I'm going to say 6. I'm going to say 6 just in case to give myself some leeway. But you never know. The Suns, like I said, their top-end talent is absolutely ridiculous. They could come in each night and just absolutely put their stamp on the Clippers. So let me know who you think is going to win this series down below. Don't forget to like, the comment, the subscribe, all the goodies there, all the regular stuff for you. Thank you for watching The Atmosphere. We'll catch y'all again.